What if you walked into a church and saw something that wasn't really there? In Argentina, there is a chapel where thousands of people, believers and skeptics alike, who say they have seen the same astonishing sight. An image of the Virgin Mary appearing in an empty space. No statue, no painting, just nothing. And yet, everyone sees her. Even cameras capture it. Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious Marian phenomena of modern times. The story takes us to Alta Gracia, Cordoba, a city in Argentina known for its devotion to Our Lady of Lourdes. Here stands a shrine built in the early 20th century, modeled after the famous grotto in Lourdes, France, where Mary appeared to Saint Bernadette in 1858. For decades, the shrine housed a statue of Our Lady of Lourdes. Pilgrims would pray before it, light candles, and seek comfort in her maternal presence. But then, something unexpected happened. In 2011, the statue was removed from its niche for restoration. It was placed at the foot of the altar, while the space above was left empty. And that's when the phenomenon began. One evening, as a priest was closing the chapel, he looked toward the altar from the main entrance. To his shock, he saw a white figure standing in the niche, exactly where the statue used to be. The folds of her robe, her outline, even the three-dimensional depth of the figure, it all looked real. But as he approached, the image faded. Up close, there was nothing at all. The priest wasn't alone in this. Soon, pilgrims, locals, and visitors all reported the same sight. A vivid image of Mary, visible from afar, and vanishing when you walked closer. This wasn't some trick of imagination. The phenomenon was and still is visible to anyone. Even more astonishing, the image shows up in photographs. The Carmelite friars who care for the shrine released a statement. The manifestation of the image of the Most Holy Virgin Mary has no explanation at the moment. It must be interpreted as a sign to deepen Christian faith and inspire conversion to the love of God. From the very back of the church, the vision is unmistakable. Pilgrims look up toward the altar, and there, inside an empty niche, the figure of the Virgin Mary appears. Not a shadow, not a trick of the eye, but something so vivid that people instinctively raise their cameras. And here is where the mystery deepens. When photos are taken, the image still appears. The camera captures what reason cannot explain. Mary standing in a place that is visibly empty. Those who step closer find the image slowly fading. News of the mysterious image spread quickly. At first, it was only locals whispering about what they had seen from the chapel doors. But within months, word had reached Cordoba city and beyond. Pilgrims began to arrive at first in small groups, then by the hundreds, and soon by the tens of thousands. Every February, on the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, the shrine transforms into a sea of candles, prayers, and processions. The faithful gather all night and into the dawn. A midnight mass, a sunrise rosary, and the Eucharist celebrated throughout the day. In 2023 alone, more than 30,000 pilgrims made the short journey from Cordoba city to Alta Gracia. It wasn't just whispers among the pilgrims that made the mystery of Alta Gracia spread so quickly. The reason the story reached beyond Argentina, rippling across the Catholic world, and even into secular news, came down to one photograph. A woman, visiting the chapel like countless others, lifted her camera and snapped a picture of the empty niche above the altar. To the eye, there was nothing there, just bare stone and flickering candles. But when she looked at the photo later, she froze. There it was, a luminous, three-dimensional image of the Virgin Mary, appearing where the niche was visibly empty. That single photograph became the spark. It spread from pilgrim to pilgrim, from local paper to Catholic agencies, and soon across the internet. And in an age where images travel faster than words, It was that one picture, a mother's face, captured in light, that carried the mystery of Alta Gracia to the world. The Church has not issued an official declaration. There is no Vatican approval, no formal proclamation of a miracle. And yet, that does not diminish the impact. The Carmelite friars who serve the shrine have been careful. They remind the faithful that Mary's message here is nothing new. It is the same gospel message she has always spoken across history: to repent, to believe, to pray, and to love. Is this heaven's way of reminding us that even in emptiness, we are never alone? Because just when you think you've heard it all, another story emerges, this time not from South America, but from right here in the United States. And once again, a camera became the silent witness to something extraordinary. This is the story of Sister Paula, a humble nun whose life was transformed by a single image. An image of the Virgin Mary, glowing with light, appearing not in vision, but in film. An image that carried a mission, one that would outlive her, touch countless souls, and connect her story to the ancient miracle of Guadalupe. This is not just a story about a picture. It's a story about faith, courage, and the ways heaven continues to reach into our ordinary world. It was the 3rd of August, 2008, when Sister Paula attended a quiet retreat in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The retreat center was simple, nestled in stillness, a place where the busy noise of life seemed to fall away. The halls smelled faintly of old wood and candle wax. In its chapel stood a mosaic dedicated to the Blessed Mother, a beautiful but ordinary work of art. Sister Paula carried with her an old film camera. Each photo felt permanent, deliberate, chosen. She lifted the camera and pressed the shutter, capturing the mosaic. Nothing unusual appeared before her eyes. Just the silent chapel, the quiet mosaic, the flicker of devotion. But when the film was developed days later, everything changed. As the prints rolled out, Sister Paula sorted through them. A landscape, a group shot, a candid smile, and then she froze. The photograph of the mosaic was glowing. A radiant image of Our Lady filled the picture, a presence that had not been visible when she took it. Her breath caught. She turned the photo in her hand, searching for a trick of the light. But it wasn't the camera's fault. It wasn't the paper. It was something else. Something beyond explanation. Sister Paula showed the picture to others. Some gasped. Some fell silent. Experts examined it and confirmed what was already clear. It had not been edited or tampered with. No natural explanation could be given. For Sister Paula, the message was undeniable. This was Mary herself, choosing to reveal her image once again. And as with every Marian apparition throughout history, the image was not given as a decoration. It was a call, a mission. In prayer, Sister Paula listened, and she felt the Virgin Mary speak to her heart. A statue was to be made. A statue modeled after Our Lady of Guadalupe, whose image had once appeared miraculously on the tilma of Juan Diego in 1531. This statue would not simply be for beauty, but for a purpose. Mary wanted it placed in a specific location on a busy street in Philadelphia, across from a hospital. A place of illness, struggle, and suffering. A place where people needed hope. Imagine being a nun entrusted with such a request. Yet Sister Paula obeyed. She went to the building owner at the location Mary had shown her and explained what she believed heaven was asking. It must have taken all her courage. And then something astonishing happened. The owner immediately agreed, without hesitation. Next came the task of actually creating the statue. For this, Sister Paula found Steve Kilpatrick, an artist with the skill to translate devotion into form. She guided him, describing not just features, but presence, the way Mary's posture should convey tenderness. the way her eyes should draw the soul upward, the way her robes should echo the tilma of Juan Diego. Every visit to the studio filled her with awe. Clay slowly took shape. Lines of her face softened into gentleness. Folds of fabric suggested both royalty and motherhood. The work was painstaking, deliberate, reverent. For Sister Paula, this was more than an art project. It was obedience. Each stage felt like a prayer made visible. But heaven's plans do not always match our timelines. Before the statue could be finished, Sister Paula grew ill. Her health declined, and soon she was on her deathbed. She gathered her loved ones and reminded them of the mission. This work was not her own, it was Mary's. "Do not let it end with me," she urged. "Mary wants this." Those around her promised. They would carry on. They would see the mission through. And so, even after Sister Paula passed away in 2013, the work continued. Her vision would not die with her. The clay model was completed. From it, a mold was made. Bronze was poured, cooled, polished. The first statue stood complete, solid, weighty, and yet filled with a presence that seemed to transcend its material. In 2015, the statue was placed in Philadelphia at the Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul, one of the most important churches in America. And the timing could not have been more perfect. That year, Pope Francis came to the United States for the World Meeting of Families. Thousands gathered, and there, unveiled in the cathedral, was the first of what would be many statues born from a glowing photograph. It was as though heaven had arranged the unveiling to coincide with a moment of worldwide Catholic unity. When the bronze statue of Our Lady was finally completed and placed inside the Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul in Philadelphia in 2015, many thought Sister Paula's mission had reached its peak. After all, what greater honor could there be than for her vision to be realized in one of America's most historic Catholic churches, unveiled during the World Meeting of Families with Pope Francis himself visiting? But what no one could have predicted was that this was only the beginning. The statue quickly became more than a piece of sacred art. It became a focal point for prayer. Each day, visitors, locals, and pilgrims alike began to kneel before it, lighting candles, whispering intentions, and finding a strange, unexplainable peace. Some spoke of feeling Mary's maternal presence wrapping around them, like an unseen cloak of protection. Others, even those who were not Catholic, admitted that something about the statue drew them in, as if the gaze of the Mother of God herself refused to let them walk past untouched. By the end of 2021, 4 of these statues had been installed in different parts of the United States. Each one carried the same mission Sister Paula had understood in her heart: to create prayer sites where life would be defended, faith renewed, and healing poured out upon a wounded culture. What made these sites so powerful was not just the bronze image itself, but the way ordinary people responded to them. In Philadelphia, parents would bring their children and teach them to pray the rosary at Mary's feet. In another city, elderly women gathered every evening at dusk, forming a circle of prayer around the statue, their voices rising like incense in the twilight. In yet another location, a man battling addiction claimed he experienced the strength to stay sober after kneeling before the statue during one desperate night. Stories began to circulate, quiet, personal, but persistent. People who had long been away from the church felt nudged to return. Couples on the brink of divorce found reconciliation after praying together before Mary. And in hospitals across the street from where one of the statues stood, families of the sick reported feeling comforted in ways they could not explain. Then, in 2022, something happened that gave these prayer sites an even greater sense of significance. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the ruling that had legalized abortion nationwide since 1973. The decision was seismic, sending shockwaves through American society. But for those who had followed Sister Paula's mission, the timing felt more than coincidental. Had not Mary told Sister Paula that these statues would be signs for the protection of life? Had she not insisted that they be placed in visible, public places where people could gather in prayer? For many, it seemed that the seeds planted by one nun's obedience, watered by faith and nourished by prayer, had blossomed into something larger than anyone could have foreseen. The statues were not just bronze, they were beacons of hope. From Philadelphia to other cities, the mission continued to spread. And with every new prayer site, Sister Paula's legacy deepened. Though she had passed away in 2013, her mission lived on. It was as if she had stepped aside, allowing Mary herself to continue the work through those who carried her vision forward. To truly understand the meaning of Sister Paula's photograph and the statues that followed, we have to step back nearly 5 centuries to a cold December morning in 1531 on the hill of Tepeyac in Mexico. It was there that the Virgin Mary first appeared to a poor indigenous man named Juan Diego. He was not a bishop, not a nobleman, not someone powerful. He was a widower, humble and simple, walking his path to attend Mass. And yet, it was to him that heaven chose to speak. As Juan Diego walked, a brilliant light broke upon the hillside. A voice, tender and motherly, called out to him. Lifting his eyes, he saw her, the Mother of God, standing in splendor. She spoke in his native Nahuatl tongue, not in Spanish, not in Latin. She addressed him with the tenderness of a mother speaking to her beloved son. My little one, my dear Juan, she said, where are you going? Shaken, he bowed before her, and Mary gave him her message. She desired that a church be built there, a place where she could show her love and compassion to all who came in need. Juan Diego, trembling with awe, went to the Bishop of Mexico City, Fray Juan de Zumárraga, to deliver the request. But the bishop was cautious. He asked for proof. And so, Mary gave Juan Diego a sign. On December 12, 1531, she told him to climb Tepeyac Hill, barren in winter, and gather roses. To his astonishment, he found the hill covered in Castilian roses, blooming in the cold where no flowers should have grown. He gathered them into his tilma, his rough cloak woven of cactus fibers, and hurried to the bishop. When he opened the tilma before the bishop, the roses spilled to the floor, and suddenly, the miraculous image of the Virgin Mary appeared on the fabric. That tilma still exists today, nearly 500 years later, defying scientific explanation. The image shows Mary clothed in a mantle of stars, standing upon the moon, supported by an angel, pregnant with the child Jesus. Her eyes, scientists say, reflect microscopic details as though they were alive. Her garments bear symbols only the indigenous people of Mexico could understand. And what happened next was even more astonishing. Within a few short years, over 8 million people converted to Christianity. Human sacrifice ceased. A nation once divided by conquest and bloodshed found unity under the gaze of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Now, fast forward to Sister Paula in 2008. Just as Juan Diego once carried a miraculous image in his cloak, Sister Paula carried a miraculous image in her photograph. And just as the tilma became a sign that converted millions, Sister Paula believed the statues inspired by her photograph would lead countless souls back to God and protect life in an age of violence against the innocent. The parallels are too striking to ignore. Both Juan Diego and Sister Paula were humble, ordinary people chosen to bear extraordinary messages. Both received a sign through an image, not a voice alone, not words on paper, but an image that could be seen, touched, and shared. And in both cases, the image was not an end in itself, but the beginning of a mission. In Mexico, the tilma became the heart of a new Catholic nation. In America, The statues inspired by Sister Paula's glowing photo became seeds of hope in a divided society. The Virgin of Guadalupe has long been known as the patroness of the Americas and the protector of life. Through Sister Paula, it seemed her mission was echoing once more, reminding us that just as she defended life in the 16th century, she continues to defend it today. Whenever a mysterious sign like Sister Paula's glowing photograph emerges, people ask the same questions. What does this mean? What is heaven trying to say? The Catholic Church, with her wisdom and caution, always reminds the faithful that private revelations, even striking ones, are never binding on all believers. They are not new doctrines or additions to Scripture. Instead, they are gentle reminders of what has already been revealed, the gospel of Christ. The Church invites us to look at the fruits of such events rather than the fascination of the phenomenon itself. And what have been the fruits of Sister Paula's mission? The answer is written not in documents, but in human hearts. Across the United States, the statues inspired by her photograph have become little oases of prayer. In Philadelphia, a young mother who had been away from the church for nearly a decade found herself drawn to the statue after visiting the cathedral with her children. She lit a candle, and in her words, "Something broke open in my heart." That very week, she returned to confession and began attending Mass again. In another city, a man battling deep depression spent an evening sitting silently at the prayer site. He later told friends that in those quiet moments, it felt like someone was holding my pain with me. For him, the bronze figure was not just metal, it was the presence of a mother. And then there are the stories of families facing crisis pregnancies. One couple, overwhelmed with fear about bringing a child into the world, went to pray before the statue. They later testified that the peace they felt that day gave them the courage to say yes to life. Today, their child lives because of that moment of grace. These are not headlines that make national news. They are quiet miracles whispered into the fabric of ordinary lives. Yet these are the kinds of miracles that matter most. The slow, steady conversion of hearts. Sister Paula herself once explained that Mary's desire was not simply for a statue, but for prayer sites, places where heaven and earth meet in the silence of human longing. She believed miracles would come, not because of bronze or stone, but because prayer would rise there like incense, attracting God's mercy in abundance. It's no coincidence that Mary appears most often in times of cultural crisis. At Lourdes in 1858, she came as the world wrestled with modern skepticism. At Fatima in 1917, she came during the bloodshed of war. At Guadalupe in 1531, she came at the dawn of a new world, uniting peoples divided by conquest. And now, in our own day, she comes again through an unexplainable photograph given to a quiet nun in Pittsburgh at a time when life itself is under threat, when faith is fading, and when hope feels scarce. Whether one accepts Sister Paula's photograph as a miracle or not, the reality is clear. The fruits are good. People are praying. Families are being healed. Hearts are being lifted toward God. And in that sense, the message of Our Lady is finding its mark. Mary is not silent. She continues to speak not with thunder or spectacle, but with the quiet persistence of a mother who refuses to give up on her children. Because ultimately, this story is not about one nun, one photograph, or even one miracle. It is about the persistence of a mother's love, a love that refuses to fade, a love that shines even in the darkest corners of our world. Think of it. An old film camera, almost forgotten in the age of digital photography, became heaven's chosen tool. A piece of technology that most people had left behind was used to capture something eternal. Doesn't that seem like God's way? Choosing the humble, the outdated, the overlooked, and filling it with light. Sister Paula could never have known the full impact of what she carried in her hands that day. But she trusted. And that trust, that simple yes, became the doorway for grace to pour into the world. In that sense, she was not unlike Juan Diego, an ordinary soul entrusted with something extraordinary. A soul asked to say yes without knowing where it would lead. And here is the lesson for us. You do not need to be powerful, wealthy, or famous for heaven to use you. Mary does not look for qualifications. She looks for willingness. She looks for hearts ready to say yes. Sister Paula's yes, whispered in a chapel in Pittsburgh, continues to echo today in cathedrals, city streets, and homes across the nation. But the story also asks something of us. Signs are never given just to amaze us. They are given to stir us, to move us, to call us higher. When heaven places a glowing image into our world, the real miracle happens only if we respond. So how should we respond? First, by remembering that Mary's message is always the same. She points us back to her Son. She does not ask for devotion to herself as an end. She asks us to follow Christ, to pray, to repent, and to love. Her statues, her images, her apparitions, they are all road signs pointing in one direction, the heart of Jesus. Second, by allowing her maternal presence to change us. We live in a world full of division, anger, and despair. Mary comes as the opposite spirit, gentle, uniting, hopeful. To kneel before her is to be reminded that we are not orphans, that heaven has not abandoned us, and that love is still the most powerful force on earth. Third, by protecting life. Sister Paula believed that Mary's mission was not only about statues, but about defending the most vulnerable. In our time, this is perhaps the greatest battle of all, the struggle to protect the dignity of every human person, from the unborn child to the forgotten elderly. Each prayer site becomes not just a place of peace, but a front line of hope in that struggle. And finally, by carrying the light forward ourselves. Sister Paula is gone, but we are still here, and each of us can become a living statue, a visible reminder of Mary's love in our families, our communities, our workplaces. The true miracle happens when others see in us a light they cannot explain, a peace, a kindness, a faith that points them back to God. So the next time you hear about a strange photograph, a glowing image, or a story that seems too mysterious to believe, remember this. What matters most is not the phenomenon itself, but the fruit it bears. And in the case of Sister Paula, the fruit is undeniable. Statues stand, prayer rises, hearts are healed, life is defended, and faith is renewed. The photograph itself may fade, the paper may yellow, but the light it captured will not disappear. Because that light was never about film, chemicals, or shadows. It was about Mary, the Mother of God, breaking once again into human history to remind us that we are loved, that we are not alone, and that heaven is closer than we think. In the end, Sister Paula's story is not a closed chapter. It is an open invitation to see the light, to carry it, and to let it shine into the empty spaces of our own lives. And that is the light that remains.